I haven't heard from anybody wanting to play right now, but we're going live because breaking news out of the world is that the jury has reached a decision, a verdict in the trial of Donald Trump.
Quite the high-stakes moment where we're waiting for the
Brian Tyler Cohen telling me now that the jury is waiting, is entering the courtroom.
Just pounding here.
This is incredible. Let me
I
see.
have a feeling a lot of people are going to remember what they were doing right now.
Let's see what's happening with. She's off the air. NBC. Let's see what
particular,
NBC.
a state prosecutor essentially trying to prosecute a federal campaign.
This is NBC. Give credit to it.
Yes, that's one of many different grounds for appeal. And in a case like this, it is true that false business records prosecutions are.
Maddie was supposed to join me. I don't see him.
The way this one was brought, it is novel, and anything novel is ripe for appeal.
We want to let folks know you're looking at the screen there. At the top is where we often see the former president when he comes in and out of the courtroom. We would assume, no matter the verdict, we will see him, likely hear from him. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're also keeping an eye on the crowds gathered around the courthouse right now. They have grown as word has circulated that a verdict is close by. And as far as that verdict is concerned, we're told that about 4:20 Eastern time was the note indicating that the jurors, I guess, have to push a buzzer and communicated that they had a verdict. We were told it would be about a half-hour process as they prepare the documents or some of the logistics of revealing this.
What's interesting about that is the judge had intended to dismiss them today at 4:30, and they would come back tomorrow.
6 initially, it was going to be 6.
But they decided 4:30, so the judge indicated this afternoon, okay, he told the parties, I'm going to send them home at 4:30. At 4:20, they get a note. They send a note and say, we have a verdict, and that's why they hadn't even filled out the verdict forms. So then they told the judge, okay, we just want you to know we have a verdict, but now we need a half hour to fill out the forms for these 34 counts.
You have to imagine at 4:15, the prosecution and the defense was going, okay, we got another day of this now, getting ready to go home because of that indication from the judge. What's also interesting here is what former President Trump has been doing as the jury is deliberating. He is in a holding room now in court. Sources have confirmed to our team to Laura that he has a TV that's been put in there, so he's engaged in some TV.
He never took the stand, so that would have been his chance to do that.
He's been sending fundraising appeals as well while this process has been going
Turns out
on.
he's
Telling
used the
people
N-word
to try to
today
donate to
from
his
one of the
campaign.
producers said his NDA is expired.
Legal issues as a boon to his fundraising push.
It's just who you choose to believe, either Donald Trump or not Donald Trump. I mean, that's
So
pretty much
one
it.
would imagine that the verdict will be read at any time. So for anybody who's about to be introduced or we're going to talk to, you may get interrupted, but Dasha Burns is outside, and we have seen Dasha.
I remember the O.J.
something of a
Simpson trial.
carnival atmosphere from time to time outside that courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Oh, here we go. Let's listen. Laura, go.
Guys, we need to go. We need to go.
Go.
Okay. Okay, here we go. We have our verdict, Savannah. Here we go. Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, guilty. Count 5, guilty. Count 6, guilty. Count 7, guilty. Count 8, guilty. Count 9, guilty. Count 10, guilty. Count 11, guilty. Count 12, guilty. Count 13, guilty. Count 14, guilty. Count 15, guilty. Count 16, guilty. Count 17, guilty. Count 18, guilty. Count 19, guilty. Count 20, guilty. Count 21, guilty. Count 22, guilty. Count 23, guilty. I'm pausing because it's coming in. Count 24, guilty. Count 25, guilty. Count 26, guilty. Count 27, guilty. Count 28, guilty.
34, all counts guilty.
Count 30, guilty. Count 31, guilty. Count 32, guilty. Count 33, guilty. Count 34, guilty. That is 34 felony counts here, all guilty verdicts. Savannah and Lester, back to you.
A total victory for the prosecution here, Laura. The jurors obviously bought the prosecution case.
Real.
Sir, back to you.
A total victory for
Unreal.
the prosecution here, Laura. The jurors obviously bought the prosecution case in full. There was a consideration of whether or not they might split their verdict or compromise in some way. That has not been
Donald Trump has been convicted by a jury of his peers.
We're starting to show you some of the...
He picked the jury. He picked the jury. Keep that in mind. His lawyer got to pick the jury.
Can you believe what has taken place here?
Convicted.
The jury did it. The jury did it.
It's a resounding
He's a felon now.
prosecution in a case that they pitched as something far greater than about hush money. The way they tried to cast this case was about the subversion of democracy, and today the jury agreed with them, Savannah. The former president...
It is a bad day for Donald Trump. I mean, he's found guilty of all counts, all felonies. His crew, his cult is going to say, well, it's a democratic city. But his lawyers and him got to pick the jury. If he had just sat up in court and paid attention, he probably isn't convicted of all of them, but he just doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit about America. He doesn't give a shit about fucking anything. He doesn't give a shit about anything, obviously. He was concerned about whether America would like a black man winning The Apprentice, and of course the black man didn't. So, you know, of course he used a different word at that point. That is unbelievable. Well, that's just what you do when you don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right? I mean, he paid off a porn star that he fucked while his wife was nursing their child, his immigrant wife, where he rails against immigrants as being vermin. So did she produce a rat? Is that what happens? Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get what happens there as far as Donald Trump's cult. This has got a shock to the system for him. I mean, he's going to be basically put into custody, I think. I think he should be arrested and put into custody and probably put overnight in Rikers, processed at least. That's what would happen to me and you. We'd be in jail already for years. But yeah, this is just incredible. I don't know what's going to happen here. But it doesn't seem like I don't know, Brian Tyler Cohen, let's see what he's saying.
The DOJ passed on this. It was DA Alvin Bragg who brought this prosecution forward. And aside from that, you know and I know, Donald Trump is a grown-ass man. Nobody forced him, certainly not Joe Biden, to have an affair with a porn star and then pay her off and then falsify business records to hide those payments, including getting Michael Cohen to take out money to do so and then making Michael Cohen whole, including paying his taxes and falsifying the business records to do so, which sent Michael Cohen to prison for this exact scheme. Nobody forced Donald Trump to do this. He is a grown man. He made the conscious decision to do this on his own.
That's what I say.
If Donald Trump is looking for someone to blame here, it's not going to be Joe Biden. It's not going to be the Democrats. All he has to do is look in the mirror. And I'm saying this because I know that we are going to enter into a moment now where the right goes into overdrive by trying to claim that this was a political prosecution.
Yeah, that's what they've been claiming, but it's 12 jury members that got selected by Donald Trump and his fucking attorney.
Let me read a little bit of what's happening in the courtroom right now.
Breaking news. Yeah.
Donald Trump remains largely expressionless. This was as the verdict was being read back.
34 counts.
Trump did look over toward the jury as they each confirmed that this is in fact their verdict too. They had to confirm with each individual juror to make sure. Judge Merchan then said to the jury, "I want to thank you very much for your service in this case. It was a long time to be away from your jobs and your families, engaged in a very difficult task. I admire your dedication and hard work," he says. So this is it. This was a historic moment that we just lived through. Donald Trump, the first former president of the United States of America to be found guilty of a felony crime, 34 felony crimes in this case. Found guilty on all 34 counts.
I mean, there wasn't even on anybody's mind. That's what the whole thing was.
That, as I mentioned before, according to the latest polling, 16% of Americans said that it would be disqualifying if Donald Trump was a convicted felon. Remember, we're seeing a lot of polling now, but most people who are paying attention to politics, most people who are, in this country now are not paying attention to politics. When they tune back in, whether it's later this summer, whether it's in September or October, the first thing that they're going to find out is that Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for the President of the United States, is a convicted felon. And not just one. once, but 34 times over. They will also know what the sentence is going to be. So now what's going to happen is they'll generate a pre-sentencing report, and I believe it's going to take a few weeks or so in New York. I mean, everything's a little bit unprecedented here as it relates to Donald Trump, but it'll take a few weeks, and then we'll find out from Judge Merchan what the sentencing is.
Chad Daybell has also been found guilty in his murder trial.
Thank you to people.
Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, grand theft by deception, first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and grand theft by deception, both Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, and then first-degree murder of both the children, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, Tammy Daybell, first-degree murder. He's been convicted of everything.
Working as it should, and I know that very often it doesn't. Very often it moves too slow.
It did on his case, yeah. He's been convicted. That happened here in Boise. Evil and worthless. That guy fucking was a piece of shit.
Their, usual course of their family business day to day. And it is a real sacrifice. I also believe it's not only a responsibility to serve if you are summoned to jury service, it's a privilege. Judges often tell jurors, this decision is far too important, far too consequential to leave to a bunch of government functionaries. That's why we entrust you, the citizens, from the community in which the crime was allegedly committed, to decide the fate of one of your fellow community members. And
Glenn, I'm going to cut you off, Glenn, because I want you to talk about this. Right now, the jury's been gone. The jury left the courtroom. Now, Todd Blanche is up for Donald Trump, Glenn, arguing for a motion for an acquittal. Blanche arguing, there is no basis, Judge. There is no way that this jury could have reached a verdict. There is no reason that the court should allow this verdict, knowing, and listen to this, Chris, you're going to get upset too. This makes me upset. There is no reason that the court should allow a verdict knowing that Michael Cohen committed perjury, suggesting
Michael Cohen
that he allowed
committed perjury, lying for Donald Trump.
I am sure that you misspoke, Mr.
The rats are turning on I don't understand. It makes no sense. To say that he's lying now means he was not lying then, right? So he was an innocent man put in jail? Crazy. What? His lawyer must be like a Cracker Jack box lawyer, you know what I mean? Like, one is like law degree out of a Cracker Jack box when he was 7.
Mid to late July for sentencing.
Wow.
The reason, are you ready, Glenn? The reason that Blanche tells Judge Merchan for a sentencing date mid to late July is, quote, President Trump faces other charges and other...
Bro, you're going too fast. I can't keep up with you. Oh, my God. Oh, it's too much fun. Trump is a fucking imbecile. And the people he hires are all imbeciles. That's the best part about it. Michael Cohen is not. Michael Cohen recorded everything. That's what you do right there. You record everything. That way you can prove what a fucking scumbag somebody is. I know I'm a scumbag sometimes. I'm not gonna try to hide it, but Trump's been trying to hide it his whole life.
No basis for it.
That's funny.
The jury just entered their verdict after sitting through a several-week-long trial, deliberating for a couple of days. They reached a decision that, Katie, I think you and I agree, was based on the evidence that was presented during the course of the trial. And this is a motion that the defense is entitled to make, a motion for a dismissal notwithstanding the verdict. These motions are virtually never denied, never granted. I think I've seen one granted in my years as a prosecutor, but I don't fault Todd Blanche for making it. I do fault him for suggesting that Judge Merchan knew something had gone wrong in the courtroom by way of Michael Cohen committing perjury, and I think that's why you heard Judge Merchan push back. Let me tell you, Katie, I'm a little surprised Judge Merchan didn't say, you know what, I'll order a briefing schedule. I'll give you a week to file your brief with your best arguments, as why I should now override this jury's verdict. But you know what? I think Judge Merchan sent a message loud and clear, and it was within his judicial discretion to do so.
Yeah.
I've seen the evidence. I've evaluated it. Denied.
We're recording. Truth is, your whole life is a lie.
You wanted peace, so we hit the war, and now it rages on in the shadow.
At 5:17 p.m., just 1 minute ago, Glenn Kirshner, former President Donald Trump, now, well, convicted, but we don't have an actual adjudication of guilt yet, but I am colloquially going to say, Glenn, convicted felon Donald Trump at 5:17 p.m. has now walked outside of the courtroom. I want to ask you, Glenn, you know, do you think it's fair that somebody who's just been convicted of 34 felonies gets to walk out of a courtroom?
No, I don't.
You know, this is in essence a white-collar crime. Now, I have railed my whole career against white-collar criminals being treated unduly leniently as compared to, you know, the folks who are snatching purses or selling rocks of crack who have no means, no influence, and are unable to hire their own lawyers. We seem to treat them a whole lot more harshly, and I would argue that the white-collar criminals, somebody like Donald Trump, who, let's face it, his 34 felonies did extreme damage to large swaths of the American population because he was trying to stack the deck criminally in his favor in a presidential election. I'm not surprised at all that he will be on release pending sentencing, but now I think we have to look to the other jurisdictions where Donald Trump is on pretrial release. And Katie, we're going to have to focus at some point on the fact that Donald Trump committed the crime 10 times over of criminal contempt of court beyond a reasonable doubt. Judge Merchan found he had committed those crimes. Guess what? Those are violations of his pretrial release in his other cases. So I think we should be looking for show cause orders in his other cases.
Gotcha. And Glenn, we're going to bring in Tara Setmayer at this time. Tara, a historic moment, and one that we don't celebrate because it never really should have gotten here in the first place, right? So I want to ask you what your thoughts are, top line, about the fact that the 45th president of the United States is now basically convicted felon.
He's a convicted felon.
You know, thanks for having me, Katie, on such a historic day. We really cannot understate the historic nature of this. As a country, we have never had a convicted felon former president. And I have to say, when I first heard the counts being read, I got emotional.
All right, well.
Probably. Can I get a mulligan?
That's strong. Can I get a mulligan? Yeah, great. In any event, you were with me live here. Anybody that watches this afterwards now? Nobody was here with me live, obviously. Nobody gives a shit.
I don't know if he'll be put on probation. I will say, I wouldn't, here's what I would say. Keep your expectations low and allow what happens on July 11th to exceed them. But it's
So July 11th.
Right now to put all our hopes in the court system. It will always be our job at the end of the day to show up in November and make sure to vote. Because Donald Trump can still run for president as a convicted felon. Even if he's in prison, he can still run for president and he can still win the presidency.
He will.
Is something we have
And I'll be in a boxcar.
Country. And we may think we know what that's going to look like, but I don't think we know actually what that's going to look like. We may think we know how people are going to feel, but we don't know how.
All right, well, that's all just, now it's all just the fucking afterwards.
New change, we were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here.
Yeah, you paid hush money to a porn star and tried to cover it up so nobody would find out.
The whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong.
That's about it.
I'm a very innocent man.
That's a felony.
And
I'm not even an innocent man.
I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our
He says they're an innocent man, but a guilty man.
Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was
done by
Rigged.
the Biden administration
Being rigged. Okay.
in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's
He
just
made
a
you sleep with
disgrace.
Stormy Daniels
And
while
we'll keep
Melania
fighting,
was
we'll fight
nursing
till the
back.
end and we'll
He
win.
made you do that.
Because our country's gone to hell.
He grabbed your penis
We don't have
and
the same
ejaculated
country
it
anymore. We
into
have a
Stormy
divided
Daniels.
mess. We're nation is
Perverted
decline,
priest in
serious
you,
decline.
and
Millions
it's Joe
and millions
Biden.
of people pouring
Perfect
into our
Robin
country
at Biden.
right now.
Yeah, okay.
From prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our
But
country.
Melania
We
is
have a
fine
country
because
that's
she's
in
an
big
immigrant with
trouble.
a pussy,
But
right?
this
Is
is
that
a
what it
big
is? Is
decision
that
right
the
from day
difference?
one.
She's a
With
pussy
a
you like to
conflicted
fucking
judge who should have
look
never
at every
allowed
once in a
to
while
try
because
this
she probably
case,
doesn't want you to
never.
touch her. Especially
And we
after
will fight for
sticking
our
your dick in a fucking
Constitution.
porn
This is
star.
far from over. Thank you very much.
Did you pay for an abortion? Are you a fucking loser all the time or just in court? What the fuck's wrong with your kids? They're retarded. Hey, did you use the N-word? Yeah, nobody's asking the tough questions, that fucking imbecile. He'll still get my vote! Yeah, whatever, dude. Yeah. So he gets to go home free as a bird, even though he's been convicted on 34 felonies. You and I would not see the light of day until the day was not light. Any one of us. So I tried to get on and play some zombies, but I'm glad I got on and at least got some historic breaking news to share with everybody. Donald Trump has been convicted of all 34 felony counts. He is a convicted felon. And if you still run as President of the United States, you've got to be smoking something. You've got to be smoking something. There's got to be something in your DNA or in your substance or how you were raised that you prefer bigots and losers, you prefer frauds and charlatans and con artists who steal from charities and kick disabled people out of their homes to double the rent. You prefer those kind of people. That's your cup of tea. But I'm very grateful that all of my friends are basically non-political or non-Trump. And the only one that really gives me any hostility about it is my son. But this should remove all doubt that Trump is a fucking criminal. And that's all he'll ever be. So I'm going to leave it at that. I was 22 minutes doing that. I never saw him get online. Nobody got online. So peace and love, love and peace. We live in a new era. We have a convicted felon as a former president.